Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the realest podcast in the dunya. The three Muslims today, I'm going to be reacting to a video from iamLucid titled something along the lines of I thought I was God. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. Without further ado, let's begin.
This is going to be a rather embarrassing video to make. I actually believed at one point in my life that I was God. Not joking, I actually wish that I was. When I first made my Discord server about 4 or 5 years ago, I was introduced to some new age woke atheists that, kind of led me to this. They influenced me into this belief that I, along with you, everybody, every living thing, actually the entire universe itself, everything was God, just trying to explore and experience itself. God created all of this to experience itself, is what I actually believed. So I believed at one given point in my life that I was you. We're just physically in different bodies, but we're the same exact thing, and we're actually one exact source. That's what I actually came to believe at one point in my life. This got me down the deepest, darkest, rabbit hole, depressive state of my life, because I realized that with this type of thinking, there's no justice. There's no redemption whatsoever. If the whole point of all of this was just to experience, what if you just don't want to experience? What if you want to do something really, really bad to yourself? It doesn't matter. There is no justice, right? We're all going back to the same exact place with no reward or punishment, so it's pointless. Might as well just, God forbid, do whatever you want and just have fun, right? If somebody came down to my basement right now, hit me with the Control-Alt-Delete, if you know what I'm saying, that I can't say on YouTube, obviously, and put me at 0% health. If they did it to me right now, with that exact belief, they're not going to get punished for it. There's no justice for it, nothing wrong with what they did, because we're just trying to experience each other. That's it. That's the whole point of this. So if God came over here and killed God, then God committed no harm because he's still God, right? Makes no logical sense, but I actually believed in this because of the first law of thermodynamics that actually states energy can't be created nor destroyed.
So I just want to pause and jump in here very quickly. Firstly, shout out to iamLucid. He's a great brother, and I love how he's debunking this as he goes in a very logical and rational manner. It's very silly how a lot of atheists are actually very spiritual. And note how he said New Age atheists. These are New Age spiritual atheists who don't believe in God because they're atheists, but believe they are God and everything is God. So they don't believe in God in the traditional sense, but they know that it doesn't make sense for a God type being not to exist. So they just say, "Oh, the universe and everything is God." Come on, what kind of nonsense is that? That's silly. And also, the idea of the first law of thermodynamics and all that stuff, matter cannot be created nor destroyed, only transferred, and so on and so forth, to use that as an argument is fallacious again, because that law applies within the closed system of the universe. It applies within a closed system of the universe. How can you say that this applies without a universe being there? Actually, there would be no thermodynamics without a universe or a container to contain such laws and such principles. So immediately, that line of thinking is so illogical that if a person like, iamLucid is talking about now were to really reflect on it and think about it, they would find tremendous gaps in that thinking, in that reasoning.
I think if we're at the smallest form, energy can't be created or destroyed, then we're God, because we're infinite. We have no start or end date, so we have to be infinite, and if we're infinite, we have to be God. That's what I actually started to believe, and I had full conviction into this belief. Oh boy, how I can destroy that type of argument now. But I'll give you a few reasons why this is even more prevalent in today's time, especially amongst the West. So there's a study by Oxford University that I'm pretty sure it's a $2 million study with like 57 scientists across 22 different countries that proves and states that all human beings, regardless of whatever family you're born into, all human beings are born with the innate predisposition that God exists. Not only that God exists, but there's an afterlife. It's kind of funny that we're born knowing that there is one, that God exists and that we're going somewhere after we die. But in the West, you're taught the exact opposite. It's kind of like they're going against your own innate predisposition. It's like they're going against what you were born with. And when you start to go to school in the West, for an example, your teachers teach you that God's not real, which is what happened to me when I was like, must have been like 5th or 6th grade. I was taught that God's not real and that this is all, like fake, and empirically you can't prove God. So prove to me that God exists, show me God, is actually what my teacher told the entire class of 30 kids, all full of religious backgrounds. So in 9th grade, when you get to your biology class and they teach you that you were once an ape, a theory, by the way, the same way that, let's say, believing in God is a theory, with a missing link because you can't physically see him, or believing in evolution theory is forced down your throat as if it's true, as if it's an actual fact. So step by step, the schooling system, the teachers, the friends, the families, the society, TV, everywhere you look points to one direction, that this is a secular place. This is a secular state. God's not real. And if you actually believe in it, you're way back in the past, behind your like old school times where we've all moved past and now we actually follow science.
Another great no, an amazing no, a spectacular no, actually. Because it is a huge injustice. It's one of the main injustices that occurs nowadays. And nobody really talks about it because it's something that is presupposed to be true and correct. What am I talking about? They force upon us this scientific, this inductive, this empirical, this naturalistic outlook on the world, and claim that these things are fundamentally true. But if they believe that science is the only way to come to conclusions, right? If they believe science is the only way to come to conclusions, then they fall into a trap of, axiomatic belief. And what makes their axiomatic belief true and mine not? Well, there is no real demonstration that can prove theirs right or wrong, or mine right or wrong, naturally. What do I mean by this? Let me give you an example. If they say the only way to come to true conclusions is with science, how do they know that? Can they test it scientifically? Well, that would be a circular argument. They would start with science is the only true way to come to conclusions. There's no way to test that scientifically, because even let's say it's wrong, how would you even be able to prove it's right? Right? And if you were to basically say, well, it produces results and some kind of pragmatic outlook, like some atheists have, then you would still basically fall into a circular argument regardless. So this whole approach of science is the only way to come to true conclusions is fallacious in and of itself, because the whole claim itself must be backed by some kind of axiomatic principle, or used in conjunction with some kind of deduction, logical deduction. And now with using logic, you're opening up the doors to philosophy and philosophical arguments and all of that, because that's what philosophy is. A lot of the time it's just deduction, it's just logic. So why in that case would you not be able to bring God into the equation at some point, in a logical sense, not in a scientific sense? Also, there's a presupposition and a kind of unspoken of but agreed upon rule that in science you can never bring God into the equation no matter what. Because the whole belief is that the universe exists in a particular manner and with very specific laws that can be explained, understood, observed, and theorized, and so on and so forth. So as soon as you say, well, this water bottle drops because of God, then you're removing any kind of naturalistic explanation. It's the same for science, it's the same for history, it's the same for anything. If I were to tell you, oh, I exist because God created me, any scientist would be like, well, no, we don't use that kind of line of thinking. And that's why they have to use some kind of naturalistic explanation like evolution. Which evolution are you talking about? Darwinism, neo-Darwinism, neogenetics. What kind of evolution are you talking about here? Many different theories of that alone. And that's there's more I want to say on it, but I'll leave it at that, inshallah. Many, many different problems with living in the West. Actually, one more thing, one main point, actually. This leads to the question, why? Why do people have this presupposition that being religious and being believing in God is wrong or incorrect, or I don't want to say unscientific, because maybe it is to some people, but is wrong and unintelligible, an unintelligent thing to think. Why do these people think that and act like that's the case? It's because if you look in the past in Europe and with these non-Muslim civilizations, they were so held back by the church, right? By Christianity in particular, that once they basically abandoned the church and adopted a secular way of living, they basically made a covenant with themselves, a promise to themselves that we will never let any religion, look, they took Christianity and basically mixed all the religions into it. They said, we will not let any belief in God or any religion dictate our life. For now on, our way is that the human being is free to do, to think, to believe whatever they want. Human beings will make their own laws, their own economics, their own politics, everything their own way. And we will never let religion dictate our life. And this zeal, this fire that they had, this energy that they created, basically exploded and went on this trajectory that we are still on today. When you look back, when someone that's the biology teacher comes to you and says we cannot use God in explanation, or politician comes to you and they say, well, we don't let religion dictate our laws anymore. When you look back, why did they say that? Where does it come from? Where is this belief coming from? It comes from secularism. Where does that come from? It comes from the church repressing Europeans for like almost 1,000 years. Is that Islam's fault? No. Is that religion's fault? No. Is that God's fault? No. It's the church's fault. It's Christianity's fault. It's those people's fault at the time. But that's where it comes from. And it's funny because actually Europeans took a lot from Islam. You know, the advancements of science and math and even some laws and legislation, they took a lot of it from Islam, from the Muslims, basically. And if only they had adopted Islam, they would have had the best of both worlds. But since they were so angry with what the church was doing for so long and regressing them and repressing them, they compiled all religions under one banner of wrong and bad and stupid and unintelligible. And they ran with it for all this time. And that's why we are here today. And they still cannot produce any scientific evidence that a belief in God is wrong. Actually, their studies show that we are bound to believe in God, as iamLucid mentioned, and they cannot produce any logical or rational argument as to why God does not or cannot exist. Quite the contrary is evident.
They don't, but they say they do. So in the West, when you suppress somebody's natural desire and need and innate predisposition to believe that God exists, they end up doing some wacky shit to find it other ways, right? So they end up even believing that they are God because they know God has to exist. He just has to. They have it built into their heart. They're born knowing it. So they end up, when you teach them that, no, God doesn't exist because I can't see him, oh, then I must be him. And we all must be him. And everything must be him. That's how this is growing in the West, especially when everyone's lost. They have no objective morality. They follow no objective law. They just kind of go with what everyone's telling them to do, and they're following their own subjective desires and saying that they're good people, which is objectively impossible. This can be disproven by two ways. The first way is by the contingency argument. This argument basically says that everything in the universe is contingent on something else to exist, right? So for an example, for you to be watching this video, like everything. So if
iamLucid using the contingency argument, 2023 has been good. Alhamdulillah. Man, I'm so excited. Alhamdulillah, I'm so excited.
you're watching this video, it's contingent on YouTube to exist. For YouTube to exist, they have to have their YouTube headquarters and servers, because where else can they store these videos? So that's contingent on the servers to exist. And those servers are contingent on the parent company, Google, to have bought them to exist. And Google is contingent on, you can go forward and back and back and back and back until we finally get to the very, very start. Now that start has to be a necessary thing, and it has to be a non-contingent thing. Because if you have an infinite regress of contingent things, nothing could have given that first order to let the whole contingent thing even happen. Right? So infinitely, it cannot regress. It's a fallacy. It's actually called the infinite regress fallacy in philosophy. So we know that there has to be, it's necessary for there to be a non-contingent existence, because everything in the universe is contingent. And if everything in the universe is contingent, it means that it can't be God, because the non-contingent has to be outside of the universe, outside of its creation, but at the same exact time, infinite. So its reach has to extend within the entire creation. The same way that a painter, kind of like a good analogy, same way that a painter can paint something, but the painter isn't inside the painting, right? Or a carpenter can make this desk, but the carpenter isn't inside the desk. Same exact way that God can create us, but we are not God. We're a creation of God, if that makes sense to you. For an example, there's a line of dominoes from me to you. I hit the first domino. Let's say I'm the necessary being. I hit the first domino, and then that makes a contingent trail all the way to you. Then you say, no, it was infinitely contingent. It can't be. There had to be a necessary being that let the first domino fall. Same exact concept with us. That's why there has to be one divine source of God.
Just to add to it very quickly, basically, to summarize the infinite regression fallacy, if everything that exists depended on something before it, then nothing would exist, because you'd go back into infinity. And if you go back at infinitum, or back into infinity, then that is never ending, which means that the chain of things that exist would never begin to begin with.
That's why I truly believe in it, because logically, rationally, and innately, we're born believing in this. It just makes sense. Next, there is the second law of thermodynamics. I mentioned the first one, right? Which is energy can't be created nor destroyed, which means, we're God, which is what I actually believed. But the second one states that energy will continue to increase in entropy. Entropy is like disorder for energy. So there's no perfect transformation of energy. It's always increasing in disorder over time. I actually, this point is so important. I actually traveled across the world, like a 16-hour flight to Turkey, to prove this on their biggest Islamic YouTube channel. The video should be out in like the next month or so. I traveled across the world to convey this exact message because of how important it was. I'll give you one example. If I place a space heater in the back of this room, and then I turn it on and then turn it off after like 1 hour, the heat will eventually dissipate throughout the entire basement and then raise the level of temperature maybe just by a little bit, maybe like 1 or 2 degrees, right? So the heat won't stay exactly in that corner, even though that's where it started off. It's because there's a transformation of energy. The energy is it's increasing towards uniformity. Now that's not only happening in my basement, in the iamLucid YouTube studio that you've subscribed to, but that's also happening, you've also subscribed, right? I'm just making sure. That's also happening in the entire universe. The whole universe is increasing in entropy. So even though the energy technically can't be created nor destroyed, it will continually increase in entropy and disorder. So that means that not only did we have a start date because of the Big Bang, but we also are going to have an end date. Proved scientifically, the universe will not last forever. One Google search will give you 1,000 reasons why, but the universe is not going to exist forever. It's not infinite. And if the universe is God, and the universe is not infinite, the universe cannot be God. Because by definition, like we said, God has to be a non-contingent. He has to be infinite. He has to be outside of the bounds of time, space, and matter, because he had to have created it. Otherwise, if he didn't, he's not God, right? So with that type of thinking, I realized there's no way. It makes no rational, logical sense that I am God and that you are God and the whole universe is God, because if God has a start date and an end date, then that must mean that this, whatever this thing is, this whole universe is a creation of God, of something that doesn't have a start date. Or
Again, just to jump in, imagine I were to ask you if you had a completely flat surface or a completely flat lane that went on for like infinity, and I asked you, if I rolled this bowling ball on this lane, how long would it take for the bowling ball to eventually stop? You would answer, it depends on how hard you throw it. If I throw it as light as I possibly can, it would roll for maybe like a second or two and then stop. And if I throw it as hard as I can, maybe it'd roll for like a minute, maybe 2 minutes, because I'm very strong, alhamdulillah, and then it would stop. Now imagine this on a universal level. The Big Bang, and I'm making this very, it's a very reductionist argument. It's very simple, but I want everyone to be able to understand, inshallah. The Big Bang was basically, it produced an explosion that's so powerful, your mind can't comprehend it. So if I were to throw a bowling ball with that kind of energy, it would go on for it would seem like forever. But in all honesty, in all actuality, it cannot physically go on forever. Eventually, it would use up the energy, and because of the friction on the floor, it would even out, and there would be no more forces acting on it, right? It would run out of energy in its movement, in its momentum. It would run out of that momentum. Same thing with the universe. In every way, from the perspective of energy, it's not just physical, but like in terms of the energy of the universe, it cannot be something that is self-sufficient, self-sustaining. So there is an explosion, the Big Bang, and it sent everything flying out. But it cannot go flying out forever. Eventually, it'll stop. And it's the same thing, for example, our solar system. There are forces acting on the planets that are causing them to rotate, that are causing them to orbit. Now, it seems like this is going to go on forever, but it's not actually going on forever. It's just due to the immense energy and the force of the gravitational forces that certain celestial bodies have in the universe. It's just due to those things that they are basically orbiting for as long as they have been. But eventually things, as far as I know, will fall out of orbit. They will lose that momentum. They will lose that, that energy, the potential energy that they currently have to keep going. And eventually everything will cease to exist. Very scary.
Or an end date. That is the uncreated creator. That is the uncaused cause that hit the first domino and made them all fall, for lack of a better term. That is the prime mover. That's what God is. So that's where I came. I came an extremely long way. I'm actually shocked I'm still alive to convey this message because of how deeply depressed this ideology got me. If you live in the West, don't follow this stupid secular type of thinking where God's it's just an old tale. These old religions are all old fake BS, and you just kind of dismiss them because we follow science now. Like, look how cool we are. We follow science. When in reality, that's honestly not the case. And a lot of our theories are still either baseless, disproven, or have a big missing link right in the middle of them. So don't have that big ego on your shoulders because you live in America. You feel like you don't have to believe in God. That's not how it works. At least try to disprove God to me, then we can start talking. You can't just say doesn't exist because I can't see him. If you could see him, he wouldn't be God. We have these discussions nearly every single day in my Discord server. That's discord.gg/lucid. Either in the pinned comment down below in my description. You can find the link anywhere. Just freaking join my Discord server. Scroll down a little bit. You will definitely find it. We have these debates. We're going to start holding stages in my Discord server, kind of like Clubhouse, where there's like two guys debating and there's a big audience listening. So if you would like to debate on any topic like this, if you're an educated atheist, even if you don't even hold any of my stances, I would love to see you in there so that I can at least hear your point of view and we can have some of the smart brothers and sisters kind of debate you in there. That'd be a great time. Honestly, be a great thing to watch. I'm actually looking forward to it myself. Thank you for watching this video. Stay dreaming, stay lucid. I'm out. Peace.
All right. Again, may Allah bless our brother iamLucid and reward him. Allahumma ameen. Amazing video, and I did not expect it to take the turn that it did. So I'm very happy with that. Alhamdulillah. He has come a long way from what I can see. So may Allah increase him and continue to increase him. Allahumma ameen. So I think it was a great note that he ended on. There isn't really much I could say except that just go where the evidence is. Yeah, if anyone makes a claim to you, verify it. No matter what it is, no matter how scary it might seem, just investigate it. If God is real and Islam is true, then reality will basically emphasize that belief, or at the very least, will not contradict that belief. So with that being said, may Allah bless you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.